With the score tied 2-all, Creasman was safe on an infield hit. Johnson drills a single past Marion at short, Creasman stopping at second. With one out in the last of the ninth, Marion singles. Flickweiler also singles, and the tying run is on base.
Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 because you'll save 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me for this Wednesday edition of the DFA show is AJ Haefele filling in for Patrick Lyons. You know him from all the fantastic work they do over there at the DNVR Avalanche, bringing me on board, of course, over the last year as the newest, biggest, well, I don't know if I'm the newest, biggest, but I'm one of the newest, biggest hockey fans out there and excited to do that. But since AJ has given me such a great opportunity to start talking about and thinking about and watching hockey over the last year, I thought, what a great opportunity now that we are playing the World's Series out there, that we bring AJ on and just get some baseball talk out of you, man. I know you love the game. I know you take it in, not always just from a Colorado perspective either. And so I figured it'd be fun to just talk about some of your memories, whether it be from the Rockies run in 2007, some Astros stuff. We can do it. We can live through it. We'll be fine. But also just enjoying some baseball, man. How you feeling? How's life?
I'm good. Life is,
Yeah.
It feels weird to say life is good during a pandemic in which everybody's life is compromised in some way. But right. I feel like, I'm making the most of the opportunities given to me by the world. So it's all I feel like any of us can do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I feel the same way. But as I was saying there, you and I have talked a little bit just in life about that 07 Rockies run. As of course anyone who's followed baseball around these parts has done. But I don't think you've had a chance to come on here and share some of your thoughts. So when you think back on that time, what are the biggest things that stick out to you?
I mean, like iconic moments, right? Like, Todd Helton with the last out, Eric Burns sliding head first, and just that like rivalry that had been growing between specifically Burns and the Rockies.
So
and
beautiful.
Yeah, and like it just the karmic justice, that it was just like and I think about like just kind of how cruel baseball was to Arizona in that series, because it was like so many like goofy runs, like blue pits and pop-ups that landed in that awkward space between a left fielder and a third baseman, where both guys are running full speed and they just right in between them, and you're just like, that's baseball.
Baseball, Bo.
Yeah.
It goes.
And it's just so, those are the things I think about. I think about, the excitement of being like, oh my God, this team just went on this crazy run to get in the playoffs. The Phillies are a monster. And Jeff Francis strikes out the side.
Right.
And like, I felt like that just settled everybody down. Fan base, team, everything, where it was like, do we belong here? And then Jeff Francis was like, oh yeah, we belong. And I think that just sort of set the tone for the entire run, where it was like, this is going to be a lot of fun. And all of those series have moments, even the dreaded World Series, where really nothing went well. I mean, it's, there were even some moments in that series where you can remember them fondly.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because they do sour some of that. I've looked back on some of these numbers, and Patrick and I have been doing some of these sort of retro looks at older seasons. And, you think of Jeff Francis as this guy who, sort of had one pretty good year in 07, but he wasn't dominant. He wasn't striking out a ton of dudes. The raw ERA is like a 480, something like that. You're not getting overly excited about it. But you look at what he did in that postseason run, starting off the game against Philadelphia, like you said. And then we talked last week about how they win in game 1 of the NLCS against Arizona in their house. He goes 6.2 innings of one-run baseball. Like Jeff Francis was so good that year, and I feel like he doesn't often get nearly enough credit because Ubaldo Jimenez was kind of coming in right behind him, was emerging as that strikeout guy, and would be the much better pitcher for the next couple of seasons. But it's like, man, Francis was so good, and of course we know, he got just absolutely obliterated in game 1 of the World Series against the Boston Red Sox, which that's a tough way to finish the best season by far of your career and the most important start of it. You just get absolutely demolished.
Yeah, and he got Cy Young votes that year too. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't like he was like competitive for it, but I know somebody gave him a vote that year.
Yeah.
He was okay.
Yeah,
but
he had like 17 wins, and that was still back when
exactly people were still like wins, and it was like Rockies pitcher with wins, and so somebody threw him a bone. So I remember that, and like I loved Jeff Francis, so that was something that just stood out to me, especially was the way that I was like, okay, well, if they're gonna belong in the playoffs, Jeff Francis is gonna have to be the man. He goes out there and was not like a big strikeout guy, and he just blows him away in the first inning, and it was like,
right.
All right, cool, we cool.
Yeah. The other tone-setting thing that I think happened in that game was Todd Helton hitting a triple in his very first postseason at bat after he had not been in the postseason for a decade, and then he kind of went cold. The rest of that postseason, he was like okay, but again, it was almost it almost doesn't matter because that first triple, it's like you said about Francis. It just said to the team, "We belong here. We're going to keep doing what we've been doing for these last 15 days and keep it going." And that team was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, they had a really, traditional old school lineup, with the speed at the top, power in the middle, and then you're just hoping to survive at the end.
Right. It's kind of funny though. I've been going back over, certain numbers too. And I don't think that team gets enough credit for being as balanced as they were. They had a good lineup. They had a good rotation. They had a good bullpen. It's one of the few teams in history that wasn't like dramatically pulled by either really good pitching or really good hitting. It's like, no, they were just pretty good all the way around. They just had that weird sequencing at the end.
Yeah, they had so many guys, and like the homegrown aspect of it,
right,
was really what I think made that team feel like family. Like when you were watching them, they felt like they were part of your extended sports family. Like, the Broncos go and get a bunch of these guys and they win the 2015 Super Bowl. But it was like Peyton Manning and TJ Ward and DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib, like straight mercenary their way to that Super Bowl where it was like Vaughn was like the guy, right? And then that Rockies team was the exact opposite.
Right.
That so many of those guys were and they were like just kind of starting out. They had Holiday and Hop and Atkins and Tulo and Helton and Iannetta, and it was just like they were all guys that the Rockies, had developed. It really the only kind of big imports, were
that team
were Willie Taveras and Kaz
too. Yeah. It was and it's they still try to build that way for better or for worse at times. They stick to that homegrown talent thing, but it is one of the nice things that. When the Rockies do get good for a minute, when they do go on a run, it's with their guys, and you can feel that extra sense of pride about it. I've always kind of appreciated that. So let's go ahead and get into the World Series, since that is the major topic of the day. That season, obviously, game one, Rockies opened up with a 13-1 loss in Boston after the 10-day layoff, waiting around for Boston to come back on Cleveland. And so that, there wasn't a whole lot. I was looking actually for a highlight package. I went to YouTube, AJ, and I typed in Colorado Rockies 2007 World Series highlights. And believe it or not, nothing came up. There wasn't a highlight reel, but there was one thing that, Kale, if you've got it, we can run one thing you can remember about that entire postseason run, really about that entire season. One guy you could count on, one guy you could rely on, and one of the biggest moments came in Game 3. Matt Holliday hitting this 3-run jack out to center field to put a huge spark into the Coors Field crowd. And that's kind of the height of the excitement that a Coors Field crowd has gotten to feel in a World Series. That moment right there to make it a 1-run game. The Rockies lost Game 1 by so much, but they lost Game 2 by just a single run. So at this moment, you're thinking you're maybe in a dead heat with these guys, especially if you can take this game. Look at those people going wild, man.
Yeah, that and I can't the holiday home run was like predictable.
It was,
because he had done that so many times during that run that you could just feel it. He just kept meeting the moment.
Yeah.
And that game felt so terrible because they got down, like it was 6-0.
Yeah.
And they climbed all the way back with that home run. It was like, okay, now it's 1 run, like anything can happen. It's Coors Field, and then of course they would run away with it. But that moment was like, oh my God, here we get like this is gonna be,
the magic is back.
Here like this is gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
Like this,
yeah.
Yes, this is gonna happen, and it just it just didn't, man. They just couldn't quite hang with that Red Sox team that was riding all the momentum.
Right.
The way that they'd come back 3-1 against Cleveland and rolled right into the World Series. Like there was no break, no delay. There wasn't like an awkward period of time where they're just sitting around.
Right.
They just
I know.
Talking about that World Series it's hard because it feels like that. It feels like one of the Broncos' blowout Super Bowl losses where you get there and you're just not that close in it. It's not competitive enough.
Yeah.
And it just feels sad.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in and say Rocktober is simultaneously like one of the 3 greatest sports memories of my life and also one of the most painful sports memories of my life all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. It's just brutal. And it does come with that bit of what if, because I don't think too many people would argue that, oh no, the Rockies were the better team on paper and they got screwed by the schedule. But you do have to wonder what it would have been like if the Rockies had been playing at their best, if they still had their heat and their momentum from that entire run and hadn't been sitting around for 9 days waiting for that.
If Cleveland had just done the job.
Right. And again, Cleveland was probably, again, the better team on paper. But if they had hit the Rockies right then, and again, it's a bit of a misnomer to look back entirely and say they didn't hang it out. Now, two of the games were blowouts, and I think you're right. Like they couldn't really hang with those guys. But Game 2 and Game 4 being decided by 1 run. Ubaldo Jimenez pitched incredibly well in Game 2. And for me, I was, one of the greatest memories of that time was the fact that they handed the ball to Aaron Cook at all in Game 4. Cook had been such an important part of building to get to that moment and is one of his pitchers in Rockies history, but he'd missed most of that season with a blood clot issue. And it remember, for whatever reason, Rockies have had a number of pitchers struggle with this blood clot thing. And, he hadn't pitched in months since like June. And to throw him in there for game 4 of the World Series and then him to go out and actually, do pretty well for himself. Not overwhelming. Let me see if I can pull up the numbers really quick. There it is. He gave up 3 runs in 6 innings on 6 hits at Coors Field. It's a quality start at Coors Field in game 4 of the World Series against that Boston Red Sox offense after having not pitched in months. Like, again, it's a weird silver lining story where you're like, do I feel good about the fact that that's also the day that the Red Sox celebrated a World Series at Coors Field? But it was really cool to see Aaron Cook get out there and do that.
Yeah, and then that was awesome, but it sucks to like look back on it and then look at just the rotation that Boston threw at the Rockies.
Yeah.
Where they just casually roll out Josh Beckett and then Kurt Schilling and then Daisuke Matsuzaka and then John Lester, and you're like, come on.
Come on, man.
Like, yeah. I love Aaron Cook, but
talk about some mercenaries.
Yeah, you're talking game 4 against John Lester.
Yeah.
In an elimination game. And John Lester just, oh, by the way, like the greatest postseason pitcher ever. So cool.
Well, they would get their revenge in 2018, kind of.
Yeah. Take that, John Lester. Take that wild card loss.
That's right. I don't think that would quite evened out the ledger there. All right. If I wasn't still drinking my Strava Craft coffee, I probably would have reached for a Breck brew by now, especially because they've got that Palisade Peach situation going on. I know I'm biased because that is literally my hometown. I typically tell people I'm from Grand Junction because they know what that is. But no, my mail gets sent to Palisade. Well, now my mail gets sent to Boulder. But first 18 years of my life, I grew up right around those peaches. They're the best in the world. Now they're putting those peaches into a wheat beer at Breckenridge. And friends, it is absolutely delicious. You can get some at most liquor stores, grocery stores, King Soopers, wherever you're going. But the best place to get it is down at the farmhouse. They're open from noon to 8 p.m. You call 303-803-1380. You use the promo code DNVR and you'll save $5 off the whole thing, both the food and the beer, which is a pretty cool situation to be in. And I'm telling you, you're not going to be disappointed in that Palisade Peach Wheat beer. Even if you're not a beer drinker, I recommend you try it. Just let me know what you think. Tell them Drew sent you out there to the farmhouse. It's good stuff. Have you had the Palisade Peach yet, AJ?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest of the beer drinkers, but I like it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and that's rare for me to actually be like, yeah, I drink that.
That is kind of what I was wondering about. Is like, because I know, like, if I ask Ruta that question, he's just be like, "Yeah, it's awesome. I've pounded like 20 of them." But it's like,
you ask Ruta that question, he's already like halfway through the can. Like,
right.
Is that not what I was supposed to do? Yeah.
So that from you is a ringing endorsement. So, I figured we'd stretch out a little bit here and talk about just some of the baseball memories of recent past. As well, out there, if you're listening / watching this. And remember to join us at 4:05 p.m. Monday through Friday on Facebook and Periscope. On Wednesdays, we're also on YouTube for this special DFA show where we're playing clips and having fun and doing a little bit of extra stuff here. And so make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube. You click the little bell icon so you get a notification when we're going live. You don't want to miss out on any of that. I think one of the things we were talking about this a little bit before we came on, one of the more interesting recent World Series runs, just to comment on from the perspective of people who watch baseball, was the, can we call it, magical run of the Chicago Cubs in 2016 when they finally broke the curse. AJ, what was your reaction? Just blanket statement here. were you rooting for the Cubs to break this curse? Were you hoping it lasted forever? Did you like this team? I know you were watching this.
This is gonna sound super salty, but I was in no way rooting for the Cubs to end that thing, because screw the Cubs and all of Chicago. Honestly, I can't stand Chicago. I can't stand Chicago sports fans. The city's actually awesome, but it's the greatest city that everybody moves away from. Yeah. Which is why the Cubs have such a wonderful fan base all across the entire country. Right. It's because everybody is born there, or anybody that's ever been there for 25 minutes claims to be from there because their uncle was from there and had pizza there one time and blah, 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 blah. And it's the worst. The Chicago sports fans are just the worst. Like they're great because they're so passionate and they care so much. But they're the worst because everybody else has to put up with them. And there's a reason that even New York fans are like, we're good. Even Boston fans are like, those guys are a little much. They suck, dude. No, I was in no way. Cleveland is like heartbreak city, right? Was absolutely rooting for Cleveland because this was during Believeland. You know, when LeBron won the NBA title back in his, near his hometown. Right. This was like, this is going to be the golden era for Cleveland. So I was in no way rooting for the Cubs. In no way. And I can't imagine that there would ever be a situation in my lifetime in which I ever would root for the Cubs. But that said, when it was over and it's like, great, now Cubs fans are going to be even worse. Like, I'm happy for the 85-year-old guy that spent his entire life getting his heart broken by that franchise.
Sure.
Like I'm happy for the generations of families that have watched Cubs games together and gone through the pain and like sat in the living room when families still did that and actually watched sports together. And like the way that just generations of Cubs fans hurt. Yeah. And then to see them win that, like I was happy for that. I was happy for Dexter Fowler. Love Dex. Like I was happy for that dude. But once it was over, like it's done. You let the anger go, you let the hate go, it's over. You tip your cap and you say, hey, and game 7 was an awesome game. Yeah. It was one of the more entertaining games that you could imagine. And at that point you're just like, these people suck, but I'm happy for them. Like I'm not going to rain on their parade.
Yeah, I had very mixed feelings about this whole thing for a lot of the reasons why you mentioned there too, right? Like I've always had difficulty with
that tying home run. Rajay Davis. Oh, that was awesome.
This World Series had like the best WWE style headline promo to build in quite some time, right? Just coming into it. Either one of these teams is breaking a super long curse, right? Yeah. And that the thing is going to go 7 games, and that the 7th game is going to go down to the final innings was just like you couldn't have scripted it out any better, except for I agree. I had a roommate at the time who was a huge Cubs fan. And so I knew a ton about how they had built this team, coming up through the minors. And I've always really liked guys like Anthony Rizzo in particular. I like him as a ball player.
He's just so damn likable.
Yeah.
I hate that I like Anthony Rizzo as much as I do. Yeah. He just seems like a gigantic ball who's really good at baseball and just plays for the wrong franchise.
Totally. But I'm with you. I wanted Cleveland to win this so bad, and they were right there. And I still, and there it is, that final out. But that was the most entertained I've been by a World Series, maybe ever. Like it was really, really good. Yeah.
It was, those Kansas City World Series were pretty entertaining.
Those were pretty fantastic as well.
I have a good friend who's a diehard Royals fan, and he was just like, This will only happen once in my life. All I want is for this just this one time. And so like I was super happy for him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it was that Cubs thing, man. It was hard. It was hard to watch them celebrate, and like Cubs fans were already obnoxious jerks all the time. Like they roll into Coors Field and they're just like, "Man, Cubs," and you're like,
yeah.
How are you this arrogant about such a crappy franchise?
Right.
And then they win a title, and then it looks like they're set up for like dynasty levels. And it's crazy now to look back, like seeing how those careers have played out.
Yeah.
It's crazy to look back at like Kyle Schwarber, we thought was going to be like a superstar because he barely played at all, missed that entire year with injury, rolls out and has like 5 hits and 9 at bats or something in the playoffs, and you're like, who is this guy?
Right.
And like Chris Bryant, you know, who should have been a Rocky, right? Like was this close to being a Rocky? Like some like seriously, like Anthony Rizzo, very likable. And then you look at how some things have gone since then, and those guys have not kept up that pace of play.
Right.
And you're just, it's kind of like, wow, that World Series was kind of fluky.
Yeah, it's interesting, but of course, you'll take it. I've seen some people recently. It's become kind of in vogue to like criticize Theo Epstein for not turning that team into a dynasty, and so part of me is like, I guess it coulda, shoulda, woulda been, but bro,
I saw something on Twitter the other day about the guy. They were supposed to be the Dodgers and Yankees of the Heartland, and it was like, bro, they've won more World Series than either one of those franchises in the last decade.
Right. Winning the World Series is, very hard to do. And it's
I mean, even when you pay your way into playoff teams every year, it's really hard to do. The current Dodgers they've what? How many NL West titles in a row have they won? Nearly a decade's worth, and it's going to take. I mean, they're finally going to win it this year, but
asterisks and stuff. Is that who you got? Is that who you got on the DraftKings sportsbook app? Yeah. I think that's probably who you got to go.
I watched that whole Dodgers Braves series. I had it going on while I was playing through Divinity 2, and it was just like, that was a fantastic series, by the way. I just think that this Dodgers team is just too good, man. You just can't make mistakes with them because they kill you. Yeah. Mookie Betts finally showed up. He did nothing. That entire LCS, he does nothing. And then, like, he makes a great defensive play in Game 6 on Marcell Ozuna, and then he's awake.
And then he becomes the best player on the planet since that moment. Yeah.
Switch flipped, man.
Yeah, that's great ones do it like that sometimes, and he's an absolutely great one. Hey, if you're with AJ, you got the Dodgers winning this thing, maybe you want to make a little bit of money on that. You can probably still go and throw down a little bit of cash. It's still plenty of time for the Rays to win it as well, if you think maybe that's the smart money to go with. Either way, you can drop it at DraftKings Sportsbook app. Great way to just make a little bit more fun out of these games, especially when your ball club's not in it. You got some skin in the game. It can make it a lot more fun. Plus, you can fatten up your wallet a little bit if you do it wisely. You place a couple of, low dollar bets here and there, and DraftKings Sportsbook starts throwing free money at you to throw at whatever kind of betting you want to do. Whether you're into this World Series, you feel like you've got a handle on it, you're already into football season, you're thinking about that, you're getting really excited about rugby. I see all of you out there getting excited about our rugby coverage. Well, you can bet on all of it at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And if you use the promo code DNVR when you sign up, you get a bonus of up to $1,000. That's right. Promo code DNVR gets you a sign-up bonus of up to a G. That's the technical term for it. $1,000 is 1G. That's what you get when you use that promo code DNVR. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 by playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. So you mentioned the Royals World Series. That was my other major one. I have family connections there, of course. Both of my parents were big Kansas people, KU basketball people. So
My dad
Royals,
as well.
Yeah. So the Royals have always been kind of the AL team of the family. So that was a nice little run there with back-to-back World Series appearances, the win in 2015. One of the things I remember, and I've kind of carried this with me, maybe a little too much ever since then, was the way that like the emerging analytics community hated those Royals teams.
Yeah, that's super old school. Like we're gonna steal bases. We're gonna sacrifice bunt. We're gonna have the same guys pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. We're not gonna, the high leverage situations are what we tell them they are, not what they end up actually being in the game. But we're gonna do it every day. We're gonna win. We're gonna win 3-2 every day and just scratch it out.
Yeah, it was funny, and it was really interesting because I feel like you should sort of want the facts and the data to play out and to assess thereafter, and rooting for a particular outcome to prove your hypothesis just feels totally backwards to the idea of like the analytic movement to me. So I've always thought about this. I think about this a lot, the way people basically came out and wanted this to not work, basically because it was disproving that there's only one way to play baseball. They were doing exactly the opposite of everything that you're supposed to do from, the just crunch the numbers standpoint. And yet they went to back-to-back World Series and took this second one. It was a team that still, I don't know if anyone's written a book out there about this team yet, but if they have, someone point me in the direction, because I'd love to learn their thoughts on how and why this worked for them. Oh,
yeah, we're just watching this, like
just watching the highlight.
Yeah, and like that it's funny to talking about the Cubs and how they're they built what looked like just such a superstar laden roster, and then you look at this Mets team, you look at that rotation at the time, and to see how it's progressed over the years,
right?
And it's like, how have you done so little,
right,
with a rotation like that?
Meanwhile, most of the guys on this Royals team, like, they're still contributing players, just they couldn't afford them anymore. Now they all play for other teams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they got broken up into, those guys just scattered to the wind. They're all over the place now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, talking about this Royals team, and it has nothing to do with the World Series, so I'm sorry, but it was the 2014 wild card game at the very start of this 2-year-long postseason run. Where going into the 7th inning, they bunted in a run to tie it. And it was one of the most entertaining baseball games I've ever watched in my life. And I just remember watching that game at the start of this, what I consider to be a magical run, because they were just, like you said, in the face of all analytics, what it was supposed to be. And just remembered, I could not care less about the Royals. I have absolutely no attachment to them whatsoever. And I found myself cheering them for 2 straight years because of one baseball game that was incredibly entertaining.
They were the ones that came back on the A's.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that wild card game, they were down like 8-0 or something, and they just to remind Oakland that the baseball gods hate them. And then they're not allowed to have anything nice. It's like the A's and Twins are on this like special level of misery where they're allowed to be good in the regular season, maybe even when they shouldn't be. Right. But when they get to the postseason, it's like, nope.
And here they are winning game 1 of the World Series in extras on a sac fly.
Yeah, game 1 goes to 14 innings. And that game, like that World Series starts with an inside the park home run.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's right.
Just a goofy series, dude.
That Royals team was so much fun.
And like all the big Alex Gordon moments.
Right.
There was when he played his last game this last regular season, and they they pulled him off the field and to give him the respect and all that. Like, and his family's like bawling in the stands, and you just can't help but bawl with them.
Right.
It's like you forget that like there were some legitimately great moments that guy produced for that franchise.
Yeah.
A franchise that really has been irrelevant for a long time.
Yeah, they hadn't been. I think they went maybe 20 years between postseason appearances.
Yeah, like when they drafted him, it was like cool, the Royals, and then now it's gotten all the way through his career again. It's cyclical, right? Like at the end of the career, we're back to cool Royals, but there was just this brief period of time here, these couple of years where that team was, they were good. And
Johnny Cueto was their one mercenary. We talked earlier about some of the teams that were built more on mercenaries and homegrown. They were homegrown. Their one mercenary was like the most lovable mercenary of all time.
Yeah,
Johnny Cueto. Yeah, he was only there for I think like half a season and was extraordinary for the Royals down the stretch there. So solid mid-season acquisition there. I love Johnny Cueto.
They were a great example of you have to pick your spots and you have to be right.
Yeah.
You have to make hard decisions, and working in the financial constraints that these baseball teams have to live under, you have to get the decision right when you make that big move. And that Royals team, it was just, they ripped off like a big string of them where they were just nails.
Oh, who was it? I didn't see who was playing second for the Mets on that team. I must have missed that, but
I'm assuming it was Daniel Murphy.
Oh yeah, that would have been in that time. Yep. And that would have been the postseason where I think he set a record for home runs.
He just kept hitting home runs.
Yeah, he just kept hitting, and they were all off of like Hall of Famers too. He took Kershaw deep. He took I'm trying to maybe Max Scherzer or something. Like, I mean, like just straight up like the best all-time dudes. And one of the reasons I know that is because every time they introduce him on MLB The Show, they introduce him as postseason record holder Daniel Murphy. And there's that party that goes.
Yeah. As great as the show is, that commentary, man.
Oh yeah, I know. It can be pretty brutal. It can be pretty brutal. All right, you want to talk about either of these Cardinals wins?
Nope.
I didn't think that you would. How about
the freeze thing was pretty cool.
The David Freese thing was pretty cool, though. Again, I look back on that. That was Rangers that got crushed there, right? Was that part of the back-to-back? See, again, I always just feel so bad for the Rangers getting to within an out of winning the World Series.
Yeah.
2 years in a row.
And out. I mean, that's brutal. That's brutal.
I don't know that there's a comparison in another sport that you could it's not quite like throwing a pick six to lose the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
It's kind of like the Boston-Chicago Stanley Cup final where Boston was leading by a goal and then gave up 2 goals in the last 90 seconds to lose. And Chicago won the series on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that 2 years in a row.
Oh, right. But it happened 2 years in a row. Absolutely brutal. But the David Freese, the him getting to be the big hero. I am also a sucker for any, David Freese, Jamie Carroll.
Like
anytime the little dude
the who guy.
Yeah, Tony Walters getting the single up the middle a couple of years ago. Even that.
Yeah, the very last guy on the bench where it was like, we've done everything possible to avoid using this guy. Please don't make us pinch hit him. And then he does, and he delivers for you, and you're just like, that's baseball.
Had it the whole way.
I mean, how can you not be romantic about baseball?
Exactly right. The last one I'll ask you about then from the recent memory, since we did go over the Cubs breaking the curse, was the Red Sox breaking their curse in 2004. What was your attachment or memory or relationship to that event, because it's one for me, and Patrick and I talked about this a little bit last week, but that it's hard for me to separate the just amazingness of the baseball story that they finally pulled it off, and not just like you just said, how can you not be romantic about the Red Sox finally winning? I didn't need to win again in 07, but 04 I'm fine with them having.
Yeah, it was, there was no, it's funny because like today, they've won 3 titles. Right. They kind of oscillate between being terrible and being really, really good randomly again. And, we think of them as kind of the evil empire right next to the Yankees because of how much money they're willing to spend and how they build via mercenary. They go out and they pay for all the talent in the world to get good instead of growing it like 20, 25 other baseball franchises have to figure out how to do all the time.
Like Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz came from other teams. People just think of them as these Red Sox institutions. Like those guys were both brought in from outside.
Well, and David Ortiz wasn't even good when the Twins waived that guy.
Right.
Like he was totally free.
Right.
And in 2004, like it's in 2020 we view the Red Sox in a certain light, but in 2004, there was no bigger face of consistent failure than the Red Sox. Like the Cubs didn't win often enough for us to think about them like that.
Right.
The Red Sox were a team that found themselves. They built good teams over and over and over across multiple decades. It wasn't like they built one good team that had a good 5-year run and gee golly, they just couldn't break through. Right. Like that Rangers squad, for example.
Right.
Like those old Tigers teams, like from the whenever those guys were good, they've all mashed together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like
K-line Dodgers,
like the Red Sox. Every decade they went to the World Series, like they always were there, and they always found a way to screw that thing up. Yeah. They had Hall of Fame talent was constantly churning through that place, and they weren't doing anything with it.
Right.
And then in 2004, they're down 3-0 to the Yankees, the evil empire of all of sports, and did some like it was the perfect, like, you have to exercise your demons. And they did it in such a way. I was going to make a hockey analogy, but baseball fans don't want to hear it, so I'll move on. They slayed the dragon in like the most like dramatic way possible. They slayed, and once you get through that, you never look back.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of the way that the franchise has acted. Once they beat the Yankees, there was no longer anything to ever hold them back again.
Right. Yeah, it was. I remember watching those games and thinking like, it's going to fall apart again. It always does.
It was fun. Like we complain now that the Yankees and Red Sox, they play 19 times a year and all 19 of them are on ESPN. And it's like, God, really more of this? But like back in the early 2000s, I used to watch every Yankees Red Sox game on ESPN because I wanted to see how the Red Sox were going to screw it up again. Right. It was entertaining to watch as somebody who didn't care about that result. Like, oh, the Yankees win, great. The world stays the same. They lose, great. That's even more fun.
Right. And that's totally where we were at. And I think that's one of the reasons why just so many baseball fans have nothing but fond memories of that, because that was the spot we were in. Like you said, once they were down 3-0, we all thought, okay, one of two things is going to happen. The Yankees are going to win again. And coming off of the 90s, we were also just used to it. Of course, the Yankees are going to end up in the World Series. Happens all the time.
Right.
Or we're going to watch one of the most amazing things that's ever happened in sports. And we did.
Right.
We really, it really was.
It's, I don't even know what else to say about it. It was just an incredible piece of theater. And like that it was capped off by them beating the Cardinals was just like, like, I love that clip, like the Cardinals fans have to watch that clip of the Red Sox ending their misery on their home field.
Right.
over and over and over and over for the rest of history. They have to watch that happen on their beloved home field, which they treat like the church of baseball.
And they got pretty well mowed down too.
It wasn't really that competitive of a series.
Like we're done with all this. Yeah, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate you coming and basking in some memories about some baseball. We gotta have you back on.
2001 was great too. Luis Gonzalez and
sure,
Mariano Rivera blew a playoff game.
Right, that one.
Future Rocky Byung-Hyun Kim getting himself run out of the desert.
Right.
That was just especially sweet. One of my friends' parents growing up were huge Yankees fans, and they were atrocious human beings. So watching their misery was really quite wonderful.
Right. They really expected to win that one too. And that Diamondbacks team was so easy to root for with the Schilling Randy Johnson combo. And like you said, Luis Gonzalez is super easy to root for player. They have I'm trying to remember the name of the second baseman. Junior Spivey, was he on that team? I don't
remember anymore, man.
I was going to say now we're reaching a little further back into the memory.
And like hideous uniforms.
Oh yeah, Matt Williams, he on that team?
I think he was. Great sack bunt there, Chief.
Yeah, quality decision.
I haven't actually watched this in a long time. This is kind of fascinating how this all played out.
I still can't believe Mariano Rivera blew this save and blew this.
Well,
game.
And like all of these guys are making quality contact off this guy.
Yeah, like that's a solid.
Wow, that was Tony Womack.
Tony Womack.
Yeah,
that might have been who I was looking for.
Gosh, Craig Counsell.
Bob Brenly.
Yeah, look at Bob Brenly and the stash.
Bob Brenly. And then he is.
Gosh.
Yeah, those unis are disgusting.
Yeah, and those hats are awful, man.
Loop it right back up the middle.
Yep. Oh, can you imagine that feeling running home? How, like, the adrenaline rush that would have had to have been.
Right. Just make sure you touch home plate. Don't repeat Merkel's boner and be the guy who lost the game because you didn't actually touch home plate at any point.
Memories.
Yeah, exactly. How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Yeah.
Entirely right. Well, AJ, we'll have to invite you to come back and be romantic about baseball with us again some other time. Maybe get your thoughts on the off season once there's been one. See, what the Rockies are doing out there. No one knows. We're going to find out. But appreciate you talking some World Series with us. Everybody make sure to check out all the work they're doing over there, of course, with the DNVR Avalanche crew. Great stuff going on these days. Do you know when we're going to have hockey again?
Tentatively listed on January 1st. The more people around the league that I've talked to think that it's mid-January to February 1st is probably more realistic because of the importance of having fans in the stands. But still a moving target. Still hoping for January 1st.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be something.
New Year's Day, new season.
Let's go. I'm down. Yeah, it'll. That's something we're all going to be watching for, right? Because I think a lot of people are assuming spring training will start at a normal time next year, and we'll see. A lot of that's going to, I think, even be determined by how well the NHL and the NBA handle their situations and coming back and getting stands in the fans and being able to generate revenue without, killing your audience.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the NHL's in the worst spot because of the importance of the Summer Olympics and how they have to finish before the Olympics. So,
that's going to be fascinating. So, stay abreast of all of that information by following us all at on the social media. It's just at AJ Haefele, right? You don't know, nothing special. Matt Drew Creasman. We got at DNVR_Rockies. Kale, what you got? You're just at Kale Sorbo, right?
Literally at Kale Sorbo. Just remember the 2 L's.
We're all our names. If you can remember our names, put an at in front of it. You'll find us on social media. Subscribe to the DNVR.com so you don't miss out on any of the written content. Plus, you get discounts on hats, shirts, masks. You get a bigger beer when you come down to the DNVR bar. All kinds of cool elements that come to being a part of the DNVR community. We always appreciate it. We love all of you out there, so continue to be absolutely awesome. We will continue to be absolutely AJ Haefele, Drew Creasman, and Cale Sorbo. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.